Sky Blue Fans TV. For the fans, by the fans.
Even all to a special edition of Sky Blue Fans TV, and in collaboration tonight with BC Radio. And joining us will be soon a Sky Blue legend. But firstly, we've got some housekeeping to do. We've got the statue appeal for George Curtis and John Sillett. If you can donate, that'd be lovely. Even a £5 will do. That's less than a pint. Well, less than a pint that you pay at the CBS anyway. 5 pints if you go to Wetherspoons, but yeah, be lovely if you get some more funds in. I think they've raised about 30,000, could still do with about another 70 odd thousand to hit the target. Also, we've got other things. Look at the Golf Day. The Coventry City Former Players Association that presents the Golf Day on June the 6th. That's only a couple of weeks' time. And also, out now, the next episode of Jim Brown's podcast, Sky Blue History Podcast, which of course I'm involved in. And this week we're talking about Jim Brown's top 10 players, non-league to first 11. But before I bring in our Sky Blue legend, let's see him in action.
That is an absolute treat. David Phillips, and he's bettered the one just before half-time by getting a second 3 minutes into the second half.
Speedy for Regis, Bennett, good ball, Bennett showing it to Poynton, comes across, Phillips, and that's the two. Number 2, what a beautiful goal, played by good boy going right the way across to Bennett, good running by Bennett, and there was David Phillips to make it 2-0.
Thompson supplying the cross, which eventually finds its way to David Phillips, and how about that?
Trying to cover the tracks. Here's Phillips, took off early and scored an absolute stunner. It's 5.9 plus a goal.
Phillips, Gamble again. Now Wone. Phillips. Oh, that's a beautiful goal! My word, what a strike that was from David Phillips. 2-0 Forest.
Right, let's bring him in. 1987 FA Cup legend, David Phillips. Good evening, David. How are you?
Very well, Claudio. It's good to see some of those lovely goals. Nice to see a few tap-ins as well. And look forward to this entertaining period of time with you this evening.
Well, it's great to have you here. We're still having slight mic issues, David. I don't know what's going on. Whether or not you could come back in again. Sorry about that.
There you go. Yeah, typical, isn't it? Typical. Do a great intro and it happens. Hope you're all right anyway. Here we go. Here you go.
Right, should we try it? Is that any better now, Claudio?
That's great. We might have to keep dipping in and out, I think.
Yeah, it's the village I live in, so we don't really get any sort of Wi-Fi around here. I'm only joking, of course.
Now, nowadays, let's go straight into your career. Nowadays, as a player who was able to play in most positions, you'd be classed as invaluable, basically. I mean, you could play anywhere. So how early in your career did you realise you could adapt and look comfortable in switching roles?
It was really when, at 9 years of age, that my father was in the Royal Air Force and we got transferred to Holland. We lived in Kerkrade, and I used to go to school in Brunsum. And I became a member of KBC Oranje, which was a local feeder club to Roda JC of Kerkrade, who were like a Premier League side at that given time. And back in those days, and it's the same now with Dutch football, is that they will actually coach you to go and play in every position on the park, so that when you get into those sticky situations, that you're able to get out of them. And you'll see that, when you hear the likes of Dennis Bergkamp, for example, when you read his autobiographies, etc., he will tell you exactly the same. They will know when to get out of sticky situations. And so really is that versatility of living over in Holland for 3 years, which gave me that opportunity to play in several different positions.
So when you actually started playing, obviously, professional football, we'll go through your clubs, but did that hinder you in any way in terms of, because you could play anywhere, was that you're more likely to be on the bench kind of thing? Because like, if we get a defender injured, David's the perfect man to have on the bench, or a midfielder, we'll put David on the bench just in case you need to bring him on. Or did you find it actually helped your career?
It certainly helped my career, because it also helped the managers as well, because it gave them an opportunity, if something did happen, that I could actually go into that sort of role. They could bring somebody else in. When I first started, really as a footballer, because my sporting aspect really was rugby at the time, because I was brought up in Wales and everything was based around rugby, not about football. The only time I used to play football was really on a Sunday. But it just gave me that opportunity to be able to be versatile, to go and slot in anywhere that the manager wanted me to play. But when I first started at Plymouth Argyle, I started out as a striker. I started out as a wide right. And then I went off for trials for the under-18s for Wales and became a midfielder. But then my first ever international game for Wales, I played at right back. So I was able to go and fit into those roles quite comfortably, quite easily. I had the versatility, I had the adaptability to go and fulfill any sort of role. I played in goal twice when a goalkeeper got sent off and a goalkeeper got injured. So that helped as well. But overall, I didn't think it was a hindrance. When you look at the stats of the games I've played, you don't go on the stats of Wikipedia, because they're not always correct. So there are more games there played. So over the career of my career of spanning 18, 19 years as a professional, I seem to have done quite well for a versatile player.
You certainly did. Now, this is in collaboration with BC Radio, so we're talking about David's football career and his musical likes, the groups he likes and bands. So we've got a couple of choices here to start with. Stereophonics and Dakota, and Guns N' Roses and November Rain. So why have you picked these particular two songs?
Well, it's always a difficult question when you're asked, can you name your favorite 10 songs or your favorite 5 songs? It's always going to be very difficult. And the songs that you'll hear at some stage really are not always my favorite songs, but these are bands or people that I've seen over the course of my life. And when you look at Dakota, it's just a great song. You put it on in your car radio, and all of a sudden you're driving 10 miles too fast. It just really gets the adrenaline pumping. And, I've seen the Stereophonics loads and loads of times. It's a song really, when you look at it and when you hear about it, it doesn't actually mention Dakota in its lyrics. And Kelly Jones, when he wrote this song, he was actually based in Dakota when he wrote the song. People think there's also mention about the Dakota building because of with John Lennon getting shot there. But it really is a great all-round song. A lot of these songs are based on relationships, ups and downs. They're very meaningful. And that's why I chose the Stereophonics. I could have gone Manic Street Preachers, who, for me, are one of my favorite bands of all time. But
I love the Manics.
Dakota, for me, it's just I know people in the Manics as well. I know Nicky Wire very well. And for me, the Stereophonics with Dakota is one of those songs which just really gets you going.
David, sorry, David, it's gone again. The internet, the signal's gone again. Well, we seem to have technical issues tonight. We will get through these. And David will be back on. So his first choice is Stereophonics Dakota, and his second choice is Guns N' Roses November Rain. Yes.
Yeah, hopefully it's going to be intermittent. So this is going to be a 1 hour program, which is going to go into about 3 hours, I think.
That's okay. So November Rain, Guns N' Roses.
Yeah, November Rain. When you look at November Rain, this came back out in 1992 for Use Your Illusions, and when you look at the B side, Sweet Child of Mine, I'm saying, what better LP EP could you possibly have? And when you listen to the lyrics, it is a very sad song. It's about a girl, committing suicide and the downfalls, etc. But I just love the fact that Axl Rose. We know that his voice is going at this moment in time, but back in the day, and I've seen Guns N' Roses on several occasions. But you look at them, and I know they had the issues with Slash. He went away for quite some time to Velvet Revolver. Duff McKagan has been there right from the start. Dizzy Reed has been there from the start. The first time I saw Guns N' Roses was at the Hard Rock Hotel in Las Vegas on a New Year's Eve, and it was some performance. But Slash wasn't there at the time, and It was always one of those that I needed to see Slash. And thankfully, as you know, Slash is an Englishman. He comes from Stoke. And I was very fortunate just over a year or so ago to go down to BST down at Hyde Park, and Slash is reunited with Guns N' Roses, and I could just watch Slash. He is unbelievable. He is a perfectionist. But in respect to Guns N' Roses now, they had their issues, they've had their fallouts, etc. But it is just such a fantastic song, and again, it's one of those that the volume gets turned up, and I'm driving too fast once again.
Brilliant. Well, they're two good choices. Excellent choices they are. Now, I think we're going to...
3 up front on BC Radio.
Right, let's move on to Plymouth then, David. So, how did you end up at Plymouth?
Well, after we left Holland in 1975, then transferred to RAF St Morgan, and I played. I was at Padstow, and I played for Wadebridge, and a gentleman there, Terry Rowe, really looked after me. And then when I moved down to St Agnes, which is a good 30-40 miles away, he used to come and collect me because I didn't really have an awful lot of parental support at the time, because unfortunately my mum was very, very poorly, and unfortunately she passed away when I was 15. So it was always very difficult for my dad at the time to do a lot of transportation. But in that side of Wadebridge under 16s, under 15s, we had 9 county players and 3 West Cornwall players. And through there, we got quite a few apprentices who went to Plymouth Argyle. We just had a 40th anniversary reunion, and I met up with Mark Rowe, Terry's son, who I've known since the age of 12. And it was a great anniversary. It was great to see him, but it all stemmed from Wadebridge under 16s. But at the time, Claudio, I was a rugby player as well. And I played for my town side when I was 14 at St Agnes. I played for Liskeard Lou. And there was an opportunity. I had all the big sides, Bath, Bristol, Plymouth, Exeter. They all wanted my signings. But back in the day, there was no money involved with rugby. So the easier choice was to go to football. But it was a very difficult situation for me because, 2 weeks after my mum passed away, I had to move up to Plymouth to start my apprenticeship at Plymouth.
Now, 1984 was obviously the cup run that Plymouth had and got to the semi-final. That's probably when people started to notice David Phillips, and I gather there were some clubs looking at you. That must have been incredible because I believe Plymouth, you were third division at the time, weren't you? And how did that feel knowing
we were third division at the time. Yeah, it was one of those that I had a good involvement with the Wales under 18s and under 21s, But during that period as well, the Argyle at the time was not going particularly great. We were a little fending off a bit of a relegation battle. But to get to the semi-finals of the FA Cup back in 1984, and we talk about now, about the fact that the FA now are going to get rid of replays, which I think is an absolute crying shame, because during that course of that run, I think we had 3 replays to play in. And one of them was at Derby, where Andy Rodgers scored that goal. And that one, you've told me about that one, where the ball goes straight in from the corner at the far post. But unfortunately, when we went to the semi-final, we had a good opportunity very, very late to equalise through Kevin Hodges. And as he explains, when he hit it hit a divot, and instead of turning left to go into the goal, it turned right and went past the post. But for us to get there in '84 was, an unbelievable achievement. But it also gave me notoriety, and also Wales. I'm sure we will come on to that in a little bit, but also gave me my first international cap in the May of that year against England at Wrexham. So it was a fantastic year all round for me.
And I believe it was a good outcome, wasn't it, that game against England?
It was, yeah. It was also the time that Mark Hughes made his debut as well, and he scored the winning goal. And we finished second in the home internationals, and so nobody can still remember that Northern Ireland actually won the last of the home internationals. I've never been beaten by England throughout the whole of my career. Every time I've played them. The only thing is, Claudio, only played them once. But once is enough. I can always turn around and say I never got beaten by England, but to make my debut, to play for my country was a dream come true. And I've got to be thankful to Michael England, the manager, for giving me that opportunity.
So just briefly on Wales then, what was it like back then? Because obviously you haven't got the big build-ups you have now. You have 10 days with the international side. So I mean, most of you must have been playing with knocks and bruises and all sorts, because you play on a Saturday and then you'd be playing on the Tuesday or the Wednesday.
Yeah, it's just the way things evolved back in those days. You think that back in the Coventry days, back in the time, you only had one sub, and I still remember when I was at Plymouth Argyle that we played Boxing Day and the following day, and then the 30th, and then the 2nd, and we only had one sub. So all these Premier League teams, whinging and whining that they've got 8 subs or 9 subs, and they've got 3 or 4 games in the space of like 7. Stop whinging, get on with it. We had to go and get on with it back in the day with just the one sub, and sometimes back-to-back days where we had to play. So it was difficult. We used to be, especially up in North Wales in Llangollen, and really not enough time to gel as such. But obviously it worked for that first occasion for me back in May 1984. And that was the start of my international career.
Brilliant. Well, we've got a couple of more song choices now, and then we'll move on to your move to Manchester City. Now, one of these choices, for me, are the best live band I've ever seen. So, every time you've chosen U2 and With or Without You, and then Pink, Never Gonna Dance Again. So over to you, David.
Yeah. Well, when you look at U2, and I'm not saying that I'm old, but I've actually seen them over 5 decades. I saw them in the 80s and obviously up to the 20s as such. With or Without You is an unbelievable song. It came from the Joshua Tree. The story I always remember about U2 is that myself and Mick McCarthy, who was the captain at the time, Paul Power was the captain at the time, but he used to drive me here, there and everywhere. And he said about going to see U2 because he had a connection with Bono, Paul Hewson, if you don't know who Bono was. But he said, I've got some tickets for the gig at the where were we? The Manchester Apollo. He says, but I've got to go on my own. I said, that's okay, that's fine. I said, I'll meet you inside. So to cut a long story short, I drove, he drove. And when we got inside, he said, do you have any problems with any kids outside? I said, well, yeah. I said, a kid come up to me. He said, oh, excuse me, mister. He said, would you mind me looking after your car? I said, yeah, not a problem. I said, how much are you going to charge? He said, well, how about £2? I said, well, that's a bit steep. He said, well, no, I'll look after your car for £2. I said, okay, fine, brilliant. So I said to Mick, I said, how did you get on? He said, actually, I think the same little kid came along and he's gone, how much are you going to charge? He said, oh, £2, mister. And Mick said, "No, don't worry about it, mate." He said, "I've got a dog in the car." He says, "Can your dog put out fires?" So on that basis, I think Mick took the gamble. His car was there at the end, but and no, we didn't have a dog in the back of the car just in case. But that was an unbelievable time, to go and see Bono. We know about this situation regarding all the politics, etc., over the years. But With or Without You was, an unbelievable song. In respect to Pink, I never thought I would put this in, but I went and saw Pink last year, and I have to say she is an unbelievable performer. And if you ever want to go and see somebody with an unbelievable performance, that is Pink. She's up in the air, she's being thrown here, there, and everywhere, and she's singing. But this song, for me, it's going to sound weird, but if my wife was here, she'd back me up. I like the Strictly Come Dancing as well. And the pros did this, towards the final of 1 year. And I just thought, you know what, it's just such a great song. It's got a great vibe, and it just wants to, get you singing. It wants to get you dancing. But Pink, for me, the next time she comes round, people, if you haven't seen her, you must go and see her. The time I went to see Pink in Hyde Park, one of the audience had a bag of ashes and actually put the ashes of her mother onto the stage and said to Pink, "This is my mother's ashes. She would love to have come and seen you, and here she is." And Pink said, "Well, what am I going to do with this? What am I going to do with this?" And she just continued. And she said, "It's the weirdest thing I've ever had put on a stage." She said, "I've had flowers, I've had this, but I've never had somebody's ashes put on the stage." But she was a consummate performer. Before her was Gwen Stefani. Now, Gwen Stefani should be on the list because Gwen Stefani, if you've never seen Gwen Stefani, she is such a beautiful young lady. I say young now, she's in her early 50s. And again, great performer when she was with No Doubt. And that for me was a perfect gig, having Gwen Stefani, somebody that can I say I fancied her? No, I can do because the wife's not here, Claudio, but she might be seeing it later.
I can remember somebody you used to fancy.
Who was that?
Somebody from a lower low.
Oh right, okay. Well, that's another story. I want to get back into that, but no, it was no, because Vicky Michelle,
yes,
she came up to to Manchester, and she did an opening at Tom Garner's garage for Peugeot, and she was there, as you can imagine, with her. For those who've seen a Lower Low, she was in the French barmaid's outfit with the stockings, etc. I know this isn't going through the watershed as such, but she was absolutely stunning, and that was a great evening as well for those who attended the little opening at Tom Garner's in Manchester.
Brilliant. So the next two song choices then, U2, With or Without You, and Pink, Never Gonna Dance Again.
3 up front on BC Radio.
So David, we move on to what is a pretty big transfer. Your move to Manchester City, which probably back in the day would have surprised a few people, because you tell us about it. I mean, with the manager, I know you had a love-hate relationship with.
I wouldn't say love. I might go for the second one at times. But it all stemmed because of what happened with everything that transpired at 84 with the FA Cup run with Wales as well. And I had Billy McNeil phone me up and said, "Look, I'm interested in signing you. What's the status of your contract?" I said, "Well, I'm out of contract." And he said, "Would you be interested in coming to Manchester City?" And I said, "Well, yes, of course I would do." And he said, "Well, let's go and meet at Cheltenham." And we met at Cheltenham, and he said, "Well, I'd really like you to come to Manchester City. Would you be happy to come if we can organise the figures, etc.?" And I said, "Yeah, absolutely right." So as it materialised, Plymouth Argyle had got wind of it, and they wanted me to make to be the highest paid player at the time. But it was one of those that Plymouth for me was a great start to my career. But with my father being in the Royal Air Force, I was used to moving around. But who could turn down Manchester City? Yes, they were in the old second division as it was, or the Championship as it is now, and £65,000 was the amount of money that was transferred between Manchester City and Plymouth Argyle. I think that gets you an average Premier League player now. So it wasn't an awful lot of money, but it was to Plymouth Argyle back in the day, and I was more than happy to move to Manchester.
Did you find the transition easy, or was it difficult moving up from Div 3 to Div 2 in those days?
No, not really, because with playing international football, I was playing alongside Neville Southall, Kevin Ratcliffe, Ian Rush, Mark Hughes, and those sort of people. Brian Flynn, Robbie James, Mickey Thomas. A host of players who been international for some time apart from Mark Hughes, who had played in the first as it was back in the day, and I felt very comfortable in amongst that society, and to make that transition up wasn't a massive issue as far as I was concerned. I stayed in a hotel for a period of time. It was one of those that I was looked after, and eventually I got a house in Wilmslow, and quite I'd say quite scary, the fact that unbeknown to me, I didn't realise that my father was based in the RAF at the same place before it became a housing estate years ago. So that was a little bit spooky for me. But moving into Wilmslow was great. It was a semi-detached. I used to have snags with the house, and it was one of those that I used to go to to see the people who, if there were issues with the property, and they said, yes, of course, we'll send somebody around. A week later, I'd go back and I said, the snags still haven't been done. I'll send somebody around. So after about the third week, I went back and I said, look, this is getting beyond a little bit of a joke. I said, I need all this stuff doing. He said, well, I'm sorry, David, but they won't come into your house. I said, why not? He said, well, they're Man United fans. And I've gone, and this is how bad it was back in the day. But on our estate, just round from the state, Gordon Strachan was there. Mick McCarthy was there. There was Neil McNabb. There was, a lot of players in and around the Wilmslow, Oldley Edge area at the time. But in respect of between the two factions, between the two sets of players, there were never any issues whatsoever. But the transition was made very, very easy for me. And I also had an excellent neighbour, Ken Norman. And I think I've told you the story before, where there's been on several occasions where Ken has said to me, look, what are you doing this weekend? I said, well, I've got a home game. He said, well, what's your wife doing? I said, well, she's gone back down to Cornwall. He says, do you fancy coming to Ibiza? And I've gone, yeah, of course. So I got my passport. We played the game. He drove us to the airport, Manchester Airport, got on the flight, Monarch Airlines. He was base captain, and we flew to Ibiza. And I'd be in the jump seat where the engineer used to sit, co-pilot as well. And we'd fly to Ibiza. I'd be drinking, he'd be driving, or flying, as you want to say. We'd touch down at Ibiza, have a 45-minute turnaround, fly me back, more drinks, and then when we got back into Wilmslow, we'd have a party at his house. So it was great that my missus decided to go down to Cornwall. So, the more times that she went down, the opportunities I've had of flying to Menorca, down to the Balearics, and I did that, on several occasions, doing that, in the first year I was at Manchester City.
You'd never get away with that now, would you? With mobile phones. What's that David Phillips doing? Look at him. He should be training.
I know. I'm saying he wouldn't let me land the plane either. That was the worst thing. I said, give us an opportunity of doing it. But no, it was that back in those days, things happened, didn't they? Which nowadays would be on social media and you'd never get away with it.
Exactly. Now, the owner chairman, Peter Swales, what was he like? Because my wife, her best friend's dad was Simon Cousins. So he was I think he was the treasurer. He was the man signing the checks at Man City. And she used to go and see quite a few games because they were only young girls. Then, but
orange squash, by the way, Claudio, just in case you're asking.
And obviously, before you arrived, Man City were splashing the cash big time in the late 70s. They're signing £1 million players. So had the money dried up by the time you got there with Peter Swales? What was it? What was he like?
I didn't really have a lot to do with Peter Swales, to be honest with you. But the one story I always remember with Peter was that the first year we were playing West Ham United away, and he was at the bowling ground, as it was back in those days, or if you want to call it Upton Park, that was the more popular name. And he was in the stand, and I'm trying to think the England manager at the time, who was at Newcastle. I can't think. I'll think about it in a second. And no, it wasn't Keegan. No, Robson. A lot older. He's passed away now.
Robson.
No. Keep going. No. Keep going. Oh, yeah, Bobby Robson. Yeah, sorry. Sorry, yeah. Bobby Robson. Yeah, my fault. And the two of them are having a conversation, and Bobby Robson turned to Peter Swales about 15, 20 minutes into the game, and he said, you know what? He said, I really like your midfielder. And Peter Swales said, well, who? He said, that lad down there. He said, what, David Phillips? He's gone, yeah. He said, I'm thinking about bringing him into the next squad. And Peter Swales said, I wouldn't bother. He said, he made his debut against you a couple of months ago, playing for Wales against your lot in May. And Bobby Robson said, really? And Peter Swales said, yeah, absolutely. So maybe Bobby Robson had forgotten about that. But so that was an intro. I'm saying Peter Swales did come up and tell me, and I thought, well, okay, that is quite funny. But I never really had a lot to do with Peter Swales. He kept himself to himself. It was really the management that we dealt with day in, day out.
Now, this is the mystery part of you at Manchester City. So how and why does a club sell a player who virtually played every match in 2 seasons, a huge favourite of the fans? I believe, you must have got promotion, didn't you? I think in one of the seasons. How did they
got promoted first year?
Yeah, scoring goals for fun. I mean, your goals and they seem to be always on Match of the Day, goal of the month at one stage. Why were you sold, basically?
To be honest with you, I still don't know. And it was one of those that Tony Book rang me up. It was during the off season after the second year. We got promoted the first year. I became the Junior Blue Player of the Year. Paul Power won the main award. It was an excellent year for me. The second year was a good year as well. Yes, it was a transition again, going up into the first division as it was then. Yes, it was a bit harder, but as you're right to say, I played virtually every game. Yes, we had our ins and outs, and lots of stories to tell about it. But he very much was a Jekyll and Hyde. And just one story that I will tell you was that when I was playing for Wales against Scotland up at Hampden Park, we caught a plane up to Hampden Park, and Billy McNeil had already been in touch with me to say, I'll drive you back after the game, so it saves you going back, so we can get back to Manchester and we get things done a little bit quicker, because we've got a game coming up in a couple of days' time. And I said, yeah, that's fine, not a problem, Gaffer. Anything you say, I'll go and do. So we played the game. We beat Scotland 1-0. And then I had to catch a cab to the BBC studios out there. And I was waiting for about half an hour for him. And as he came out the studio, his face was just blank and fuming. And he looked at me, he's got his car keys, and he was driving one of those Saab turbos, and he chucked the keys at me. And he's gone, you've ruined my effing night. I'm going to ruin your effing night as well. And I've gone, why? What's the matter, Gaff? He said, you're driving my effing car now down to Manchester. So I've played 90 minutes against Scotland in a qualifier, and he's gone absolutely ballistic because we won. I ended up having to drive down to Manchester, down to Hale Barnes where he lived. He was snoring and sleeping all the way. I've got adrenaline pumping because of playing 90 minutes. And I get home, get down to his house, and I've gone, Gaffer, we're here now. He's looked at his watch and he's gone, how effing fast you going? You're never effing going to drive my effing car again. Get out of this effing car and off you go.
Blimey.
And I was like absolutely flabbergasted. But that was one story amongst lots. He was such a Jekyll and Hyde. And maybe there was a couple of times where, I didn't back down to him because I didn't want to be bullied. I didn't want to be abused. He did that with several players. And then when Tony Book rang me up in the off season, Billy McNeil was down at in Argentina. I think it was Argentina for the World Cup. Or he's down in South America for the World Cup anyway. And Tony Book said that the gaffer doesn't want you anymore. And I was like, what, are you being ridiculous? Is it April Fool's? And he said, no, he doesn't want you. He wants Perry Suckling. And I've gone, well, I'm not moving. He said, well, you're going to Coventry. He said, if you don't go to Coventry, you'll rot in the reserves. You'll never play football again as long as you live here, because I've just signed a new contract. I've got a big wage rise. But he decided then that he wanted a goalkeeper because Alex Williams was coming to the back of his career. So John and George came up to Main Road. They chatted to me, etc. I wasn't particularly happy about going down to Coventry. I'm saying whoever wanted to go to Coventry, it was always that little bit of a joke, wasn't it? Being sent to Coventry, and I thought, well, I'm not going. I'm in a massive club here. Things are working out really well for me, but the gaffer didn't want me. But John and George sold me the club, and by the time I sort out my my contract, etc., it was a case of moving on. I came down to Coventry, and Perry Suckling went up to Manchester City.
Now, before we got a couple more songs we're going to talk about, but am I right in saying in one of the seasons you played the full Members' Cup final at Wembley the day after you played a league match? That's astonishing.
Yeah, and this is what we're saying about what happened back in the day. I think we played Manchester United, and then we played the Simod Cup final against Chelsea the following day at Wembley,
which is probably explains the 5-4.
It explains the 5-4 because Chelsea also played the day before. Which is absolutely ridiculous. A 5-4 game. Because I was just exhausted from everything that happened the day before. But would that happen nowadays? Absolutely not. So yeah, we played the Simod Cup final a day after we played the league game. They're absolutely crazy.
Dave, I think you might have to log back in again. It's just went a bit weird, David, just then. Sorry. All right, Miles, how's it going? Oh, I can't hear you. I can't hear Miles either now.
What great stories!
They are great stories. David's back in the room.
He's back. He's back.
We're just saying. Oh, it's getting back in. Sorry, David. Just saying great stories. It is ridiculous that you were made. You're just treated as sort of farm animals almost, weren't you? It's just incredible.
And you also got to take. We have. It wasn't we didn't have 5 on the bench or 8 on the bench. We had the minimal amount.
Now, your next 2 songs are I must admit this. I thought, oh, this is interesting. Barbra Streisand, The Way We Were, and Deacon Blue, Dignity. I can understand Deacon Blue because we're a similar age, and that was kind of our era, 80s music and all that. But Barbra Streisand, The Way We Were.
When I look at Barbra Streisand and the career that she's had, I never thought in a month of Sundays that I would ever get to see Barbra Streisand. And it happened. Chris Christopherson came on stage. Yes, his voice wasn't particularly good. And she was there. She was lauding it with a cup of tea. And she was telling stories and, singing as if she was a young girl, like from the days when she was in Funny Girl. Who can not love Barbra Streisand? We know, again, with her political thoughts and mind, there's quite a lot which I actually agree with. But, when a superstar comes, to an area where you have an opportunity of seeing her, you have to take that chance. You have to take that opportunity. And, I know that she's of a certain age now. But let me tell you what an unbelievable performer she was. Some of the films that she made, when she was younger, she was such a beautiful young lady. and she's grown into such a great person, and it's somebody that I admire. And I have to say, I'm absolutely honoured to have been in the audience, to have seen her. When you talk about Deacon Blue, this is a real. When I heard the song, because it brought emotions out to me, and when you look at the lyrics, about a person basically who was a road sweeper, picking up litter, and how he was like abused as a person, and he always had his dignity, and the kids used to take the mick out of him, and he always had this thing about sailing this little boat up the coast of Scotland. And whatever happened to him, he had always had this dream about doing this. And despite all the hardness, and harshness of the remarks that are made to him, he just got on with his job. And he had dignity, this person, and he never let anyone really get himself down. And it's when you look at the song and you look at the lyrics, it's just one of those songs that you just think, well, I want to be that person. Despite the fact that people want to bring you down, you're better and bigger than that. And why do you have to resolve yourself or resort to being, a person who gets angry and has wants to have a fight and this, that, whatever? Sometimes you get on with things. Yes, you have your opinions, but deep down you have your dignity. And this song, when I heard it live, and this sounds weird, I started crying. It was just a song that I'd heard for such a long, long time. And to hear it live, it just brought tears to my eyes. And my wife was like looking at me, she said, "You all right?" And I've gone, "Yeah, I'm fine." There was a lump in my throat, I had tears coming down my eyes, but it was just a phenomenal song. But, I've been blessed to see a lot of great musicians. And as I mentioned, these are, the musicians that I've seen. And, I could have had people like, Mariah Carey. I could have added people like Prince, for example, Tom Jones. There's a lot of people out there who I've seen, unbelievable people. But this song just.
I had the same. Sorry, I had the same feeling. I mean, I'm a massive Genesis fan, and Phil Collins always have been. And when he made his comeback about 5 years ago, when he can barely walk now, and he came out, and the first song was Against All Odds, and my wife looked at me. She says, "What are you like?" I says, "Well, listen to the song Against All Odds. Take a look at me now. This is the guy who basically is struggling to perform and is doing his damnedest to get out there." And music does that.
Yeah,
it
absolutely
definitely does that. So
absolutely. I've not included Queen in this, by the way. And I never had the opportunity to see Freddie. And we'll go later down the list because we bring in Adam Lambert. But when I look at the Queen songs, for example, We Are the Champions, I start having a tear up about that because my sister-in-law, Jenny, she passed away with cancer, and her maiden name was Champion. And at her funeral, it was the right song. So I could have included that as well, but I never saw Freddie. I've seen him, with Adam Lambert, which we'll go to shortly, I presume. But I've seen so many bands over the years. I started off with, I think it was either Big Country or Kid Creole and the Coconuts. Back in the day, and I think we got up to, between Fiona and I, bands that we've seen over the 21 years that we've been together amounts to about 150 to 170 groups.
I love live
I never
music.
saw. I've gone and seen, Deep Purple, Black Sabbath. There's a lot of bands out there which I've gone and seen, and just had great times. ELO, they're not in my songs. And if I had to put an ELO song in, you'd be thinking it's Mr. Blue Sky, which would be very apt for obviously what we're talking about now. But it's the Diary of Horace Wimp. That is my go-to. That is my go-to for ELO. And when we went to see Jeff Lynne and ELO at the O2 in London, he never played the Diary of Horace Wim. And I was so disappointed. You know, like when you go to see a group and they don't come out with a certain song and you think, oh my days, why? You know, when we went down to see the Pretenders, they never did Brass in Pocket.
Oh.
And it was like, but don't get me wrong, I've seen them on several occasions. And my wife looked at me and she said, they haven't done Brass in Pocket. And I've gone, no. I said, people will have this one song that they want to come and listen to, and they haven't gone and done it. So the next time we saw them, there was a couple next to us and said, oh, we've come to listen to Pretenders, and we can't wait to hear Brass in Pocket. I said, well, not to put a dampener on things. I said, look, the last time I saw them, they didn't do it. So it was like one of those, but hey ho.
Well, I saw Prince because I saw him I think I've seen Prince about 8 times, and there's a period where he didn't play anything from his first 20 years of his career, which is a nightmare. Because whenever I took my wife and go, oh, you're going to love it, of course she's going, well, what about Purple Rain? What about Let's Go Crazy? What about
Alphabet Street? And
I'm not. So anyway, right. So those 2 songs then coming up: Barbra Streisand, The Way We Were, and Deacon Blue, Dignity.
3 up front on BT Radio.
Well, the year's 1986, and a young David Phillips signs for the fantastic Coventry City. And I've got to say, David, it was, for me, my old man didn't have a clue, if I'm honest, because obviously, but I'm going, this is a great signing. This is a great signing, and well, I mean, you're at Plymouth. Now, there's something about you definitely talismanic, because you're at Plymouth and you had good success there. You got the semi-final of the FA Cup, 3rd division team. You get promotion with Manchester City. You then obviously win the FA Cup with us. You do really well at Norwich and getting into Europe. We'll come on to that. And also with Forest. So there's definitely something around you, an aura that creates teams to win things. So, what was it about Coventry City then and getting to the Cup final 87? How did we do it, basically? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, let's first and foremost, let's say that I had some good players around me. But you're right in what you're saying. It was a bit of a coincidence. The first time I went down to Highfield Road, I met Brian Killer Kilcline, which is an experience in its own. But as you're right to say, during that course of that year in '86, Keith Houchin was signed. When I moved into Bobanall, just round the corner from yourself and your father. Houch lived with me for the first 5 to 6 months before he moved into home close in Bobanall, and we struck up a really good relationship, as did everyone else. We had such a great family-orientated club; it was unbelievable. And even if it was a case that when it came to the cup side, where first and foremost we used to go down to the Dormy, which is Ferndown, just outside of Bournemouth. We play golf down there. The Dormy Hotel is no longer there, but the golf course is still there. And we used to go down to there. I still, when I walk along the beach just by the right-hand side of Bournemouth Pier, I just think back to that February in 1987 about George Curtis turning around and saying, come on then. And off he goes, shirt off, February, into the ocean. And I'm thinking, I'm not going to be far behind you, George. But there was only about 3 of us who ended up going into the water. The rest of them, they're all soft soaks, weren't they? But, back in those days, it was one of those times where we were looked after superbly well by John and George. The girls in our lives, our wives, girlfriends, etc., they were looked after by Jean and Inga, the respective wives. They used to take them out to Lino's. There would always be flowers dropped at the doorsteps. There would always be food. There would always be meals. They were really looked after. And it was one of those clubs where, the togetherness was unbelievable. Take for example, a Tuesday, we used to have our legs run off us. on a Tuesday. Very rare do we see a football. It might be a little bit of a five-a-side at the end. We used to go into the connection as it was. Those were our changing rooms back in the day. And then get into the sauna. I keep saying to Benno, you had to go and remove that gold chain, but he never listened and he used to burn himself. But that was Benno. And then we used to pop down to the blacksmiths in Brighton for a couple of glasses of lemonade. And then we used to go home, and then we used to pop into Coventry, and then out nightclubbing, etc. So, but we generally went as a group. It was a great togetherness, and the bond that we had. And right down from the chairman down to the cleaner, down to everyone who was involved with Coventry City, it was just it was just magical. Everything just fitted like a perfect puzzle.
So talk about the cup run. I mean, obviously we had that win against Bolton to start off, which is like a formality, really. I remember it being very cold that day. I mean, then of course you had the win at United. At what point did you feel we could actually go on a good run here?
I think it was the case that when we beat Manchester United, John and George kept on saying, "It's ours, it's ours." Houchi was unbelievable. He scored in every round of the cup. He scored an excellent goal at Manchester United in front of the Old Trafford crowd to win there 1-0. And John and George just turned around and said, "Look, our name is on the cup now." He instilled a massive belief. As I said, there was a great camaraderie between all the players, all the staff, all the wives, etc. And we just knew it was going to happen. And hindsight's a wonderful thing. It's easy to tell the stories. I still remember a situation when we played Stoke City away, that I clipped Lee Dixon inside the box.
Yeah.
And he's gone down, and I'm thinking, oh my days, and the referee didn't see it. The linesman didn't see it. And to that day, it's like, I still remember that little incident, and that could have turned things. But as it materialized, that little bit of luck, that we got, progressed us further. And I'm sure, when you come to the fact that, playing Leeds United in the semi-finals, going behind so early, to win that 3-2, and then to get the same result in the final was just an unbelievable sequence of events.
I mean, obviously winning it is the greatest thing, but was there any game of that run that really stands out for you in terms of a performance?
The semi-final when we're against the odds. We're playing at Hillsborough, in front mainly of a Yorkshire crowd. There were a lot of Leeds fans there, but there were a lot of Coventry City fans there. I've heard lots of great stories. A good friend of mine was at the hotel when the smoke alarm went off at the Leeds hotel. Had nothing to do with the Coventry City fans who were residing in the hotel, of course. Pinocchio. Lots of stories about that. And that for me, was a massive turning point. It was a huge game. Goals scored. Houchi, Benno, Ginny. Very important goals that we scored. To win that game 3-2. But we'd gone behind quite early again, and we knew how to come from behind, and it really put us in good stead when we actually went to Wembley.
Yeah, that semi-final, I can remember though, because obviously we were stunned when we won, and I can remember walking out the back of Hillsborough behind their cop, and it was like an eerie silence. It was really weird, David. It's almost like we just can't believe what's happened. We didn't know. It's like we didn't know how to celebrate because it didn't happen that often. It was just incredible. For me, the semi-final, it's up there as one of the best games I've ever been to. Absolutely amazing atmosphere. I get still a bit goose pimply now when I talk about it because obviously I was there with my old man. It's just absolutely fantastic. Of course, and the panic of trying to get there because the traffic was so bad. I remember that. So
yeah, the thing is as well is that when you look at Hillsborough, it was a perfect place for us, and I will say the atmosphere at Hillsborough is unbelievable. I'm a great believer now that I'm disappointed that the semi-finals are played at Wembley. I don't think that a semi-final warrants four sides to play at Wembley in a semi-final. But nowadays we're just talking about the financial issues. Villa Park, or he doesn't go to Old Trafford. You look at the Emirates down in Arsenal, the Etihad. You look at Spurs' new ground; it's unbelievable. Great stadium, great atmosphere, etc. And sometimes at Wembley you can get lost, because sometimes the atmosphere is not always that great. And you've experienced that recently.
Yeah, David, can you just log back in again, please? Sorry. I can't quite hear you, Miles.
The joys of live streaming.
I know, and it's unbelievable.
Here we go. Back.
Here we go. Are you there, David? Can we hear you loud and clear?
Yeah.
Great.
I hope so. I hope so.
So, what was it like then? Obviously, the week before Brian Burrows gets injured, did you know kind of immediately you'd be playing right back? I mean, did you think you'd be playing to start anyway? Because obviously, if Brian wasn't injured, you wouldn't be playing right back. So, did you expect to start?
No, I was. Yeah, absolutely right. I was going to be central midfield, is where I played the majority of the time when I was at Coventry City, and it was a little bit of a strange one. We were down at Bournemouth, down at the Dormy Hotel, and all of a sudden I saw this big shadow behind me as I went into the gents' toilets, and I had to have a quick look, and it was John Sillett. And John Sillett, we got to the urinals. He wasn't looking down or looking left or looking right or anything like that. But John's turned around to me and he said, David, I said, before you go any further, Sill, I said, I'll do anything for you. Whatever you want me to do. If you want me to go and play right back, I'll go and play right back. He said, well, I know you'll be disappointed not to play in the central mid. I said, John, don't go any further. Seriously, Gaffer. I'll play anywhere you want me to go and play. So that's where the story is of where I knew I was going to be playing, the FA Cup final as right back, but it would have been great if I'd have played in central midfield. But it now then gave a good opportunity for Mickey Jim to come in, and he did an unbelievable job in the heart of that midfield.
Him and David Bennett were incredible on the day. I thought Mickey Jim, well, he could have had a hat-trick, to be honest. He should have done as well. I've told him a few times he could have sewn it up and we could have been enjoying it at 90 minutes. So obviously, talk us through that day then, the match basically, when you're in that cauldron, you got the atmosphere. Did you ever suffer with jelly legs in that situation? Could you feel the expectation?
Well, I'll take it back a little bit further than that, because when we were at the hotel, it was one of those that we had a wedding which came across, and it was looking as it was a good luck charm for us. And that was at the Complete Angler in Marlow, and I remember Brian Kilcline had a blue hose to put over her leg, so that was again a good luck charm for us. But John Sillett got onto the coach, and a magpie was in front of us, and John turned around and said, "We're not going until we see a second magpie." So we had to wait on the coach, waiting to go to Wembley until we saw a second magpie. And then when the second magpie came, he says, "Right, driver, off we go." So then we drove, to Wembley. We refused to have the cameras in the coach with us. We know that Tottenham did, and when you look back, they were laughing and joking and doing this and doing it. But we were playing cards, and as we started getting to Wembley Way, the amount of fans that we saw, both Spurs and Coventry City, it was like, now we're here. And I still remember John when we were in the dressing room turning around to us and saying, like, guys, I want us to go out there and enjoy yourselves. Well, Claudio, 2 minutes into the game, Clive Allen scores a goal. We enjoyed ourselves for 2 minutes. And then we knew it was game time. It was a case of we couldn't really go and enjoy ourselves until after the final whistle in extra time. It was hard work. Yes, we had a goal disallowed, etc. It was a long throw from myself, which went to I think Cyril Regis, etc. But there was a push. But we had opportunities to win the game. But when you look at that game, 11 players who started the game, we were more than a match for the Chris Waddles, the Glenn Hoddle, Ozzy Ardiles, World Cup winner. We were more than a match for them. And people turned around to me and said, was it a case that you always thought that you were underdogs? No, we never ever thought that we were underdogs, because during the course of the season, we'd actually beaten Spurs. We'd finished in the top half of the table. And, when you think about what we achieved away from home, Stoke, Manchester United, Sheffield Wednesday, and then obviously, with Hillsborough against Leeds, we didn't fear anyone. And I say hindsight's a wonderful thing, but still remember George and John, when we got into extra time, turning around and say, hey, look at them lot. They're not fit. We're fitter than them. And I just go to think about all the times that, on those Tuesdays where they used to run the legs off us. And then we had to go and, go and get our couple of glasses of lemonade just to rehydrate ourselves. Did us a power of good, and I've told you the story before and you didn't realise at the time, with your dad, running the local pub in Bubbenall, Houchy and I came back home and, there were, half a dozen bottles of champagne left on our doorstep, and thanks to Tony, your father, for doing that. I really appreciated that.
Yeah, that was 2 weeks before my birthday, David, which meant I got a crap birthday present. So
you didn't get any champagne then?
No, I didn't get any champagne. Yeah, it's yeah. Well, that night when we got back, I missed the homecoming because you can imagine what it was like in our pub. It was very, very sky blue. There's so many sky blue fans used to come in our pub, and it was a great celebration. That some guy had recorded the whole Mercia sound recording of the game, and he just kept playing it over and over the goals, and we got very drunk, and I didn't even get up till midday the next day. But it was, and I think for any Coventry fan still living, the best achievement. Well, it's the greatest achievement ever, basically, for our club, and it's absolutely magnificent. And the one thing I will say about you, because I can remember you in close season where you'd do a lot of fitness work. You'd be running from your house to Brighton and back again, and I know for a fact that you used to keep on top of your fitness. I mean, you're still looking trim now, and it's probably all down to that hard work from years ago. But I always remember that. I'm thinking, that David Phillips, he just never stops. I mean, because I know you used to tell me that there was a regime where you had to be a certain weight when you went back. I mean, you're obviously well ahead of the rest of the group, because I know some of them won't be doing that.
Yeah, it was. It was always a case that because I played international football as well at the end of the season. That it was one of those that still had to keep myself fit playing international football. But also, it was a time sometimes when I had downtime. I would relax. I'd be on holiday, etc. But I'd still be out stretching, etc. And I always remember meeting Paul Futcher, who played for Manchester City and Luton, on holiday in Menorca, and we've gone for a run together, and etc. And he was in his mid-30s at the time, and I said, if there's one tip that you can give me to elongate my career, he said, keep stretching, keep the length of your hamstring stretched, calves, etc., groins. He said, just keep stretching. And that was one major tip I had. You mentioned about players who,
Oh, David, sorry, David, you have to log back in again. Really sorry.
Oh, here we go.
It just gets good, doesn't it? Every time.
Every single time. Blimey. I'll tell you what, I love the way he kept on top of his fitness, though. I thought you were going to say you kept on top of your fitness running from your house to the pub.
I just hope I hope you just got a good editor, is all I'm going to say.
Yeah.
But
Miles, I've got to say, actually, you say that Miles in the background, who'll be doing all the editing. He's doing a great job behind the scenes, actually. So, yes,
he's doing fantastic. But as I said, there were certain players who obviously had issues with their weight, and the one person I could really bring to mind is Brian Kilcline. And it used to be one of those that we always used to get weighed on a Monday. And Killer used to go and have a few glasses of lemonade on a Saturday night. But on Sunday, the only thing that he ate was tins and tins of peaches. and that was the only way that he could get his weight down. And when you come in on a Monday morning, he would be wearing a bin bag. And basically that was sweat everywhere, so it wasn't nice to be behind Killer when he was moving, because he was flicking here, there and everywhere. But he was certainly one who, had to look after himself. But, the majority of the players, they were pretty good at, listen to, the regime of what John and George wanted. And yes, we did look after ourselves.
Right. Well, we're going to a couple of more songs that you've chosen here. Dionne Warwick and Walk On By, which I do love actually, but I actually prefer the Stranglers version, but that's another story. And Kylie and Padam.
Yeah, that's interesting. Two phenomenal ladies. Dionne Warwick, unbelievable career that she's had. And my wife and I have been out to Vegas on several occasions. And on this one occasion, we'd already booked to go and see Mariah Carey. And Fiona said, well, Dionne Warwick is appearing at the Cleopatra's Lounge in Caesars. She said, what do you think? I've gone, without a shadow of a doubt, we need to go and see this lady because she is an absolute icon. And we turned up at the Cleopatra's Lounge, and there must be, if I said there was 100 people, I might be lying. And I'm not joking here, Claudio. At her age, she was still singing. And I was that close. I could tell you now she had no nose hair whatsoever. I was, and we were that close. But she presented herself so well. She was a great storyteller, and her songs just are simplistic, and the way we were, is just a song about romance, about people splitting up, about trying to make up and it doesn't happen. And she was there all glammed up. I wanted to go and meet her afterwards, but the bouncers didn't allow me to do that. I did mention your name, but they said definitely not.
No, that's the worst thing you could have done is mention my name.
Yeah. So with her, having seen her very, very close up, you could not put Dionne Warwick in there. As I said, I've seen a lot. Kylie.
Did you get?
Who doesn't? Go on.
Yeah. Did you get close enough to see her nose hair? Because I'd love to get that close.
I could tell you another story, but we'd have to wait until 9 o'clock. But at the end of the day, she wore short skirts back in her day. But and I was quite upfront at the time. But when I first met Fiona back in 2001, it was just after 9/11, and we got together, and the song at the time was a Kylie song, and it stood with us. Can't Get You Out of My Head. And we've seen Kylie on several occasions, and the last time we saw her was at the Radio 2 event in Leicester last year, and she had a new album out, and she had Padam, and we sang a little song to our little dog about Padam, and it's all about a heartbeat, and how much love there is. I wish you'd take my shirt off, is all I'm going to say. But she's such a great artist. Throughout the whole years that she's produced some unbelievable songs. We know that she was involved with Stock Aitken and Waterman. But Padam is just a simplistic song. You listen to it, and again, it's just so heartwarming. But she is an unbelievable artist. She may be still small in stature, but she is such up there for me. She's unbelievable, and I absolutely love Kylie.
So there's your next two choices: Dionne Warwick and Walk On By, and Kylie and Padam.
3 up front on BC Radio.
Right then. So this was a big surprise to me, and it's probably even a bigger surprise to you that you end up becoming Norwich's record signing for £550,000. What were we doing selling you after 2 seasons? I was gutted because that meant no more programs being autographed, no more footballs being autographed. Because basically, David and Keith used to come into my dad's pub, and I go, "Get this signed for me, David. Get this signed for this, Keith," and they'd go off. I mean, I've got me Charity Shield, the Cup final programs, the semi-final. They're all signed by the players. It's fantastic. So I bet you'd probably. Well, I'm going to Norwich. Get away from that Claudio. He keeps getting me to sign things. Why were you sold to Norwich after only 2 seasons? Unbelievable.
Well, it was actually 3 seasons.
Was it 3?
So obviously that last season wasn't a good. Last season obviously wasn't a good one, Claudio. But it all really transpired because my contract was coming to an end, and we went out to Bermuda, and I was partially injured at the time, and we stayed at the Belmont, just outside of Hamilton. And John and George turned around to me and said, "Well, obviously you're not training, he said you can come golfing with us." So I went out with the directors, the chairman, and I had a bit of a time. I didn't get involved with the champagne breakfast, etc., because obviously that wouldn't have looked particularly good for the players who were left back at the Belmont. But we played some great courses, and one story I always remember was us stopping just outside of the Hamilton the Southampton Princess, and you look over the cliffs and it's sheer blue ocean. It's unbelievable. And we stopped, and Ted Stocker got out, and he just grabbed hold of the taxi driver, and he said, "How come your ocean is so blue?" And the taxi driver, without a smile on his face, he said, "Well, sir, what you don't realise, 4 o'clock every morning, we have lots of people who go out in their boats and put blue dye into the ocean." And Ted Stocker's gone, "Really? I might get that patented for when we get back to the UK." And then the guy started laughing. I thought, Ted, no, mate, sorry. But getting back onto that, the contract that they offered me was a decent contract. And when it came round to signing it, the contract figures were not the same as what we had agreed. And so I was more than disappointed that happened. And as it materialised, Dave Williams had been in touch from Norwich, and he said, "Well, are you signing the contract?" I said, "Well, not with the contract that they're offering." He says, "We want you desperately." And I said, "Well, okay, fine." It ended up going to a tribunal. The tribunal came out with £550,000. John Sillett had said before, I'd left, that they wanted £1 million for me. And I'm not sure who got the better deal. I'm sure that Norwich at the end, £550,000 was a great deal for them. But I was sad to leave Coventry City. But things had started to change, and eventually, George and John eventually moved on. But I had great times at Coventry, some great memories, still got great memories. A lot of people that I've met, some people that I've even met today. We had a school game today at Telford Junior School, and we were playing Coton End, and they come up and said, "Oh, David, you used to play for Coventry City. What was it like winning the FA Cup?" So even now, it's transferred to year 5s and 6s. Everyone at Telford Junior School knows who I am, what I've done, from year 3 onward upwards. And it's good to see, that I'm still remembered for my days at Coventry, because obviously living, locally as well. But the move to Norwich again was it was a no-brainer, really, just because of the fact that the contract wasn't right, and it was time to move. But this time I had to move with the house as well.
Oh, you just froze there, David.
Should we try again?
Try again. We're of course live at the moment, and this happens when we're live.
That seems to be going okay. So it's still local. Goes to Telford School. Do you know my boss's kids go to Telford School?
Oh no, my kids went there.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, my boss's kids go to Telford School.
So,
do they? All right. Okay. Who's that?
They're very young. Daniel Simmons. So it's his little lads.
Yeah, I don't know a Simmons. I have to be honest.
Yeah, they are only young. Only 6.
Yeah. All right. Okay. So they're possibly either coming into year 3 shortly, possibly.
Yeah.
So when they get to year 3, is that when they have an opportunity of being coached by me? So up until that age, they're in the primary school. So, and it's a fantastic school as well. And it's one that I've been associated for about 20 odd years.
Fantastic.
I used to live across the road, dead opposite. Yeah.
Yeah.
So 92-93 season, you finished third in Norwich. Obviously, that meant a UEFA place, and I'll move on to you being sold again. But that was yes, sort of in some ways it's a shame really because you missed out on that win they had against Bayern Munich. I think when they beat them, didn't they, in the Munich Olympic Stadium?
Yeah, they did. And everyone remembers the great Jeremy Goss goal. But again, it was a situation that it came to the end of my contract, and Mike Walker was the manager. We'd done great things with Dave Stringer before that, but with Mike Walker, we finished third in the league. I scored some invaluable goals during the course of that season. And I went into his office. He pulled out a scrap piece of paper, unraveled it, and he said, "Oh, this is the contract." And I said, "Well, if you're actually doing that to me, it tells me something." They went off to America pre-season. I stayed with the under-18s, and was a consummate professional. In that time, Frank Clark and Nottingham Forest had got in touch with me and said, do you fancy coming here? He had just come in as a manager, replacing Brian Clough. Roy Keane had just gone to Manchester United, and he said, "I want you to come in to replace Roy Keane." So with that, it was a case of going down from the Premier League down to the First Division. And it was a decision. I thought, well, financially it would be good. It'd be an opportunity to move back to the Midlands as such. And, as you've mentioned and alluded to before, it was the start of another exceptional season for me.
What's interesting, and I wrote this team down, this Forest team. So, Stuart Pearce, Stan Collymore, Colin Cooper, Steve Stone, Scott Gemmell, Kingsley Black, Mark Crosley, Des Little, Steve Chettle, Ian Woan, Lars Bohinen, Gary Crosby, Alfie Harlan, Jason Lee, Robert Rosario, Neil Webb, and yourself. That team, I mean, obviously you went there the season they'd already got relegated. But how on earth does that squad of players get relegated? That's a ridiculous squad of players.
Yeah, it was. Well, to be honest with you, if you take myself out, you take Lars Bohinen out, and you take Stan Collymore out of the situation. We were three players who came in. Stan came for $2.5 million from Southend. Can't remember exactly where Lars came from in Norway. But it was one of those cases that, I've been asked several times, what was the changing room like because of getting relegated? But they had big players, as you're right to say, Mark Crossley in goal, Stuart Pearce, Chettle and Cooper, Scotty Gemmels, the Steve Stones, the Ian Woans, who've gone on to great things, at not only at Nottingham Forest, but also at Everton as well. They've done really well. They had a good time when they were at Burnley. Sean Dyche has done a fantastic job. I know Sean very well. But Stoney and Woney are first team coaches, and they've gone on to do really well. But back then, when I first went to Nottingham Forest, I wasn't involved in the first team for a few games because Frank said to me, "So look, bide your time. I want you to look at the style of play that we have, and when the time's right, you'll go in straight in." And as it materialised, I had to wait a few games, and I was thinking, we were at Barnsley one day. And I'm thinking, have I made the right decision here? And when I got into the first team, it then went off. I became Player of the Year that year. Stan Collymore scored 20 plus goals. I don't think he was particularly pleased that I got Player of the Year. And then we got promoted, and then we went into the Premier League where we finished third one year and got to the quarterfinals of the European or the UEFA Cup at the time, and got beat by Bayern Munich in the quarterfinals. But things started moving again once we were at Nottingham Forest, and as you're right to say, a great side.
Yeah, I was gobsmacked, and I thought, yeah, that's the team I remember. But I thought I've almost forgotten they'd played in Division 2 because to me that's the team that was playing in the top flight. So what was it like playing in Europe? Because would that, in terms of league European competition, as playing with the club, not your country, was there a huge difference? Was it noticeable from league football?
Yeah, it was. It's very similar, to international football, especially when you play against some, really strong sides, that we had. But also during the course of that run, I pulled my hamstring. And it was one of those that I missed a reasonable amount of time out. But I did get back for the quarterfinals. And you talk about stadiums and places that you always want to go and play. And the Olympic Stadium in Munich was one of those that I've always wanted to play. I remember the World Cup back in 1974. We were living in Holland, but at that time we were on holiday over in Austria. And on World Cup Day, my father decided that he wanted to move back to Holland, to travel. And myself and my brother Gareth were like, basically screaming at my dad, "You can't do this to us. We want to see the World Cup final." And eventually my mum turned around to him and said, "John, you need to stop in Luxembourg City to let the boys watch it." But seeing the old stadium as it was, the Olympic Stadium, it was unbelievable. We came away from there losing 2-1. Steve Chettle got a good header from a free kick from myself. And then unfortunately, Jurgen Klinsmann decided he wanted to turn up for the second final, the second leg. When you had Papin playing as well. What an unbelievable strike force that was with those two.
Now we've got another choice of song. We're going to play one song this time, which is Michael McDonald, "What a Fool Believes." Now I know he was with Steely Dan and the Doobie Brothers, and he is a fantastic singer. Fantastic singer.
Yeah, unbelievable. When I look at certain songs, etc., and this is really a dedication to my wife Fiona. And when you ask people if there's one song in your life you would pay a shed load of money to hear the same, this artist sing, or a artist that you really want to hear this song from, who would it be? And Fiona's is Michael McDonald, "What a Fool Believes." And she didn't know until maybe about 7 or 8 years ago. It's actually her sister's favourite song as well.
Right.
And we happened to see Michael McDonald with his wife at the Symphony Hall in Birmingham. And again, with Fiona, there were tears rolling down her eyes when this song came on. And, it means an awful lot to her. It means a lot to me. And the one little story I have with Michael McDonald was that I followed him on Twitter. And he followed me back. And then a little while later, he decided that he wasn't going onto social media, not because I was stalking him, but I think he decided that, maybe social media for a person of his age didn't really have to go and, adhere to that. But listening to that one song, he could have played that one song maybe 15 times over during that course of that night, and Fiona would never have got bored of it. So this is for Fiona.
Brilliant. That's Michael McDonald, "What a Fool Believes."
3 up front on BC Radio.
Right. What I want to talk about now is, a bit about your international career and what it's like to play for your country, and also what David Phillips is doing now, basically. Because so what's it like? You get your first call up. What's it feel like, David?
Well, to get your first call up, as I mentioned, we were at the Bryn Howell Hotel in Llangollen, and Mike England just pulled me and said, "Oh, David, just to let you know, you're going to be making your debut in midweek against England." And it was like a dream come true. To play for the country who you want to go and play for is an unbelievable honour. It's a great achievement. And to have all my family come up and watch as well. Unfortunately, my father wasn't able to come up. My mum had passed away, as I mentioned before, when I was 15. My sister lived around the corner, around from Wrexham. She still lives there in Malpas. My brothers came up, wife come up, good friends came up to see me make my debut. And to win 1-0 was, a great result for us. I decided to change my shirt. Some people keep their shirts on their first, but I just thought, you know what? I'm going to be making more than one appearance for Wales. And up to my right-hand side up here is Paul Walsh's shirt, who was playing for England that day. And I changed shirts with him. And I said to Walshy not long ago, I said, "Where is my shirt, Walshy?" I said, "I fancy having it back." I said, "Have you got it hanging up somewhere?" He said, "No, it's in the bin liner in the attic." He said, my missus hates football and she won't have any memorabilia around. And I said, "Well, anytime you want to get rid of it, please pass it my way." So, but playing international football, it's one of those that if you give the ball away, sometimes you don't see it for 5 minutes. And when I've been very fortunate to play, Argentina, Uruguay, I've played Germany endless amount of times, Belgium, Holland, Spain, Italy. I never played against Portugal, but some great occasions, some great players I've played against. I've managed to get Batistuta's shirt from Argentina, Schifo from Belgium, Francescoli from Uruguay, Andreas Bremer, God rest his soul, who just passed away not that long ago. Unbelievable fullback, the best two-footed fullback I've ever seen. So honoured to have got a shirt, and Jurgen Klinsmann as well. So I've got some real nice shirts, which I'm proud to have. But international football is a totally different concept. It is a game of possession, and as I said, if you do lose possession, they will basically, you don't see it for 5 minutes, and they are ruthless as well, generally in front of goal, and they make you pay for the mistakes that you make.
With the qualification you get now, the amount of teams that qualify, no doubt Wales, when you were playing in the Euros or qualifying for World Cups, I think you would have qualified for more. Well, you definitely would have qualified and not have to wait since, was it 1958 before you qualified again? Recently.
Yeah.
Because you had such good players, Mark Hughes in, Rush up front. I mean, with those two up front, you're thinking, well, it's qualification, surely. So was it just the fact it was just there weren't so many teams qualifying that prevented you getting through?
Yeah, it was always a case that we ended up in a real tough group.
Sorry, Dave, you've gone Daleki again. Sorry.
Yeah, they are. I tell you what, this is good about the international. Ask him a question for me. Say that, why is it that different that England, with the star players, that they run so fast and play so fast for their normal teams? Why is it that when they're playing for England, we're very defensive?
Right, okay. I think I can answer that.
Yeah, see if it makes any difference, because I was thinking about that when they picked the team this week.
Oh.
And here we are.
Here we are.
There we are. Back in the room.
Yeah, back in the room. Change your clothes.
So yes. So you were saying that I was saying how it seemed difficult for Wales to qualify. Was it just the fact that there wasn't that many qualification places?
Yeah, it was a case of that. As I mentioned, we ended up in groups like with Germany, with Belgium, and the one where we got very close was the group that we had with Romania, and we did come very, very close that day. Everyone talks about it all talks about Paul Bowden missing the penalty, but listen, at the end of the day, we had some high profile players, but Paul Bowden was the penalty taker. But I go back to that day, and I just think about the person who died because a flare went off across the stadium and hit a spectator in the opposite stand to where the flare went off, and that person died. So for me, qualification for USA would have been fantastic to have beaten Romania. But you have to think about the person who passed away or who died that night. And, that was a real sad occasion.
Miles wanted to ask a question. Do you want to come in, Miles, and ask the question? Is he going to bring himself? Here he is.
Yeah, hello.
Hello.
You said about international football's completely different to league football. I know you played for Wales, but I just want to ask you about England, who are going into these Euros with such talent in attacking and midfield players. Is there a reason why international football is more defensive than attacking? Because our attacking players that are play for Man City and all that sort of thing, they play amazing. But as soon as they put an England shirt on, we go very defensive. Is that because, as you said, is that much different between league football and international?
Well, first and foremost, Miles, you'll see in the back of my 2 Welsh shirts, and do I care about England?
Gone Daleki again. Gone Daleki again.
See, just the mention of England has knocked his internet out.
Yeah, exactly. I know. I just wanted to know the difference between the two, international
Yeah.
football and because when you watch international football, he's back. When you
He's
watch
back.
international football, he's back. He's
Yeah,
here, he's here.
as I say, Miles, you can see the two shirts I got in the background, which are two Welsh shirts. So, am I that bothered about England? No, not really.
No, I'm just
To be honest,
asking the difference between
Well,
international football and league football.
it's a heck of a difference. When you look at Man City, for example, Phil Foden's had an unbelievable season this year. Jude Bellingham, for Real Madrid, superb. Harry Kane's had an unbelievable season for Bayern Munich. And when you look at those sort of players going forward, Cole Palmer's had an exceptional season for Chelsea. Defensively, I don't think England are that great. They've got an excellent goalkeeper in Jordan Pickford. Going forward, they are always going to be a major problem. But defensively is where I see England might fail. If my wife is listening, I think they'll do really well. But if she's not listening, I'm not that fussed. Being Welsh, and you can ask any Welshman, and they'll be exactly the same. But I have to adhere to it because I lived in England, and it'd be good for England, etc. Great for my wife, but I don't know if I'll have gritted teeth. Let's just say that. But I hope they do well for my wife.
Well, I was in.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is so international. When you're playing international, do you go more defensive than what you do if you're playing league football?
Not necessarily, no, because not necessarily because at the end of the day, you still got to go and win a game. You can defend for all you like, and if you're going to go and defend for such a long time, and possession stats are going against you, you might have some issues. Yes, you can hit players on teams on the counter attack, etc. But defensively, you've got to be really sound. You've got to have players who know the business, so they know the job, they know the roles. But deep down, you need people who can get forward and score goals, because the only way that you win the games is scoring goals.
I think years ago, like, because there wasn't all this movement of players, we're going way back. So Italian football was always classed as defensive. So the national team was defensive. The German side were very methodical, weren't they? And and that's how they played league football. I mean, England were very, let's go and have a go, and nothing really happened. Scottish football was a bit clueless, and that's how their international matches.
Oh, I'm glad you said that. I didn't.
they always managed to, I don't know, just get it wrong, didn't they? Basically, but it's changed now, hasn't it? Because there's so many players playing in so many different leagues. You can't really define how a country plays anymore. It's basically down to the manager, I think, and how he wants his team to play. They almost treat the international team like a club side, don't they, when they get in charge of them now?
Well, they do. I would say the good thing really for England, if you're talking about England, there's only really a couple of players who are not in the Premier League, and that's Bellingham and Kane. The rest of them are all Premier League based. You look at Scotland, and there's an awful lot of Scots either in the Scottish Premier or they're in the Premier League. Yes, you've got one or two abroad, but you look at some of these national sides, and most of the national players are actually playing abroad and not in their own national league because the national league isn't good enough. And we talk about the powerhouses in Europe, the 5 major leagues, and that is where you see the majority of international players in those 5.
Well, I was in Wales when Italy won the Euros recently, when they beat England on penalties, and I was the most popular man in Wales. When I wore my Italian,
and I'm not surprised, Claudio.
It was great. I just wore a different Italian shirt every day after they won. It was fantastic. I was loved by every Welsh person I approached. So let's talk about what you're doing now, David, because obviously I know you do some media work, and what other stuff are you doing?
Yeah, I now work for a local academy in Coventry called Future Pro. I've been there for 6 years. I was previously head coach at Warwickshire College for about 19 years. I had my times with the academies at Coventry, bringing in some good players. You look at the players that has been attached to me, and they've come on and done some excellent careers, etc. People like Callum Wilson, for example, I had for some time. I had in 1 year, I had about 7 or 8 players made their debut. And that was great for me. So I've been able to deal with decent players. So now at Future Pro, I've been there for 6 years. In respect to the media work, the season has finished for me now. I finished off with Burnley versus Nottingham Forest, working for Sky, who I do a reasonable amount of media work, but really as a freelance. But now the season's come to an end as such. I'm in my last day, Future Pro tomorrow. We've got some trials coming up on Wednesday of next week. And then I'm basically off for 2 months. So it's a case of, I wouldn't say recharging my batteries, but my wife is a travel agent, and we do travel. And I'm looking forward to when we can get onto the next plane.
I'll just let you log back in again, and then we'll talk about your last 2 choices of songs.
Oh, you got me work.
Nearly there.
I got me work cut out here.
I know. He's been a fantastic guest, David. Absolutely brilliant.
He is. I've got some great comments before he goes. There's a Plymouth Argyle fan brought a comment up, so we'll quickly do a few comments as well before he goes, because these will be his last songs, won't it? And that'll be it.
Yeah.
But absolutely brilliant, and thanks for everyone tuning in.
And we're back.
So your last couple of choices are Jessie Ware and Spotlight, and Adam Lambert and Ordinary World.
Yeah, Jessie Ware. People might say this is a bit of a strange one. But when we went through COVID, Jessie came out with Spotlight. And it was one of those songs that my wife and I absolutely loved and adored. And it's got us through some times of not particularly good times. There was a lot going on in the world, with COVID, etc. But when we heard the song, it just put such a massive smile on our face. We really enjoyed it. And again, we had an opportunity of seeing Jessie Ware in Birmingham between incidents regarding COVID. We actually saw her before a few members of the crew got COVID, and she cancelled the rest of her tour. But we saw her at the O2 in Birmingham at the Academy. And she was an unbelievable performer. And we've managed to see her on a couple of occasions since then. But this is really a song that got us through COVID. And it was, as I said, it was a song that my wife and I absolutely loved, and just brought a smile to her face, and hopefully brought a smile to a lot of people's faces. And then you talk about Adam Lambert. This is a person that Fiona and I have known about since he went to American Idol. And as soon as he stepped into that room and he gave us that song, it was like, wow, what a guy this is. And, we followed his career. Yes, he didn't win American Idol. He lost. But word got out to Roger Taylor about Adam Lambert. One thing about Roger Taylor and I, we actually went to school in the same town in Truro. He went to the proper school, the grammar school. I went to the thug school. So we had something in common, but albeit it was only Truro. But Brian May caught wind of Adam Lambert as well. We know that Paul Rodgers had gone in sometime for a little while to replace Freddie, who unfortunately passed away. But with Adam Lambert, he has always turned around and said that he would never ever replace Freddie. And I don't think you could ever replace Freddie Mercury. But he's humble enough to realise that he has got such an unbelievable voice. Ordinary World is from his new album, High Drama. And just over a year or so ago, so we've seen him on several occasions performing with Queen, whether it be in this country or abroad. We went over to Amsterdam to the Ziggo Arena to see him. But over a year ago, it was Fiona's birthday, and she said, "Oh, David, I hope you don't mind, but Adam is doing a signing in Birmingham at HMV. Would you come?" I thought, well, absolutely. So we queued for about 4 hours to see Adam Lambert, to have a picture taken with him, to say, how wonderful he was. And he said, "Oh, it'll be great, thanks ever so much." And I said, "Oh, by the way, we're coming to see you tomorrow night. We're coming down to Coco's in Camden Town." And we went down to Coco's, and as it materialized, the view that we had wasn't a great view. And Fiona spotted one of the royal boxes was empty. So I grabbed hold of the manager and I said, look, it's my wife's birthday. So, well, who are you? You're anyone special? I said, well, I used to be a football player. I used to play for Man City and Coventry. He said, well, no good for me, mate. He said, I'm a Chelsea fan. He said, but I said, just give us, whatever. He said, have the time of your life. Happy birthday, Fiona. And we just sat there and we had the time of our lives listening to Adam Lambert singing High Drama. Ordinary World is one of those songs from Duran Duran, who everyone would realize that, that is the more popular song. But the interpretation that he gives, with some of the songs that he is performed on High Drama, is second to none. And all these bands have turned around to Adam Lambert and said, yeah, you can go and sing that song for us, blah, blah, blah. Ordinary World would be in my top 10 anyway. But with Adam Lambert singing it, it takes a new dimension. And, I can't wait to see Adam Lambert again. We know that Queen is coming towards the end. I do hope that they come back to the UK for one last gig here somewhere. But believe you me, we will be there. And wherever Adam Lambert goes, Fiona and I will be stalking him.
Well, it's a great choice, David, because I used to watch American Idol with my wife. It was like a chill out thing for us, actually. And we liked it because it was just American. Basically, it just felt so much better than our one. And the singers are all extraordinary at the time. And he was a standout singer. And they didn't know what to make of him. Obviously, his background story, which he didn't let out until much later in his career, because I think he knew
absolutely.
With the American public, it would have hindered him greatly, which is a shame. But he's absolutely fantastic as a vocalist. And you've made Miles's night, because Miles absolutely loves Queen and Freddie Mercury. I can see him grinning in the background. There he is. Can you take him with you?
I've seen Freddie live. Yeah, I've seen him live.
I would love to see Freddie, but on one of our excursions out to Tanzania and Zanzibar, where Freddie came from, we went to his house and, we've had pictures taken outside there. And, to think of what he actually went through, eventually him having to come out as being gay, etc., was an unbelievable thing back in the day. But also with Adam Lambert, I don't think the American public would have warmed to him if he'd have come straight out. But for me, I've got the utmost respect for people like that, and for Adam to come out and speak, quite candidly about everything. He's got an unbelievable following. As he says, he will never replace Freddie. He never wanted to replace Freddie. He's totally different, but when you look at, Queen as it is now, Brian May and Roger Taylor, they absolutely love Adam Lambert, and so do myself and my wife.
Well, that's a couple of great choices there. So Jessie Ware, Spotlight, and Adam Lambert and Ordinary World.
3 up front on BC Radio.
Just one question, David. You said you went to school with Roger Taylor. And
no, I didn't.
Oh,
same town as him. He went to the grammar school, and I went to the normal school.
Oh, I just want to know if you looked as good. I just want to know if you looked as good as him dressed as a woman. That's all, because he didn't half look good, didn't he?
Yeah,
that
video. He did, yeah. I can still see as well, like, with Freddie as well doing the vacuuming and everything. It's just those were unbelievable days, and some of the songs that they produced. And I mentioned to you about, We Are the Champions. It's something that is very close to me as well. That could have been a song that went in, but I never saw Freddie, so I didn't want to include it. And it's all about my sister-in-law, who unfortunately passed away with cancer. And her maiden name was Champion. When we went to a funeral, it was the song that came out. And again, it had everyone there at the wake just crying their eyes out, and every time I hear this, I just think of my sister-in-law, Jenny.
Well, my best mate for my 40th bought me their entire collection on Japanese imported CDs, which is, I've not actually never played them actually. I didn't want. They're all in the cellophane. I'm thinking I'll just keep them because they'll be worth a fortune, hopefully, in years to come. Miles, should we do some comments? Because there's loads of comments before we let David go. Right, Paul Hughes says, even all from North, is that Oost? In the Hebrides, David Phillips, what a sky blue and Welsh legend. Brian Kavanagh, November Rain, amazing tune, great memories. Ralph Wiggins, we would be better getting rid of the FA instead of FA Cup replays, Claudio. I think we agree with that. The thing is, it rarely happens. There's about 8 times in the last 3 seasons that a top Premier League club have had to have a replay. I can't see why they wouldn't let the rounds 1 and 2 have replays. Ridiculous.
I think it as well. And the other thing is, I don't agree is that, how come, you get to a certain stage and a Premier League side is playing and you get VAR. If you're going to have VAR, have it for the whole of the FA Cup or don't have it at all. And if we didn't have it at all, Coventry would have been in the FA Cup final.
That's true. But that still makes you a legend, though, see, David. That's the thing. The fact we're not there.
It doesn't matter. At the end, it doesn't matter. At the end, it doesn't matter. At the end of the day, what'll be will be. But I think that Coventry got robbed that day. Who'd have thought being 3-0 down to come back, and winning 4-3. You're talking, if you look at whatever angle you want to look at. But without VAR, Coventry would be in the final playing against Manchester City coming up this weekend.
Yeah, my birthday weekend as well. Ian Small says, evening all. Wayne Littlewood, good evening all. Great show. Thank you, Wayne. Ralph Wiggins, I was in the queue to get into Wembley for Live Aid in '85 and was listening to the fans talking up U2 as the band, but they didn't do it for me. All right, Ralph. Well, I completely agree with Pink. Just a fabulous performer. I saw a concert at the Rico.
Yeah, I have to admit as well, Claudio, is that when my wife came along to see U2 at the O2, she was nonplussed because Bono decided that he wanted to get back to being political. And she thought it was just all about him, and not about the audience. So my wife's not a massive fan, but, as I said, from 1980, 84, 85, when I first saw them, I've always loved them. But, everyone sometimes goes in a different tangent, don't they?
Yeah, I saw them at Twickenham for the Joshua Tree 40th. It would be 40th anniversary, I think. I took my wife, Noel Gallagher was supporting, and the set list was ridiculous. It was, it was absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, it wouldn't have been quite the 40th, would it? Because the Joshua Tree, I think, 87, was 86.
86. So what was it?
86, 87, 86.
Yeah, so it was 30 years. 30 years. It must have been 30.
Yeah, it might have been 30. Yeah.
It was brilliant.
You're showing your age now, Claudio.
I know. Steve Price, Sky Blue and Welsh, the perfect combination. Yes, Steve lives in South Wales. Is that right, Miles? I think he does.
Good place to live.
Argyle Life, Green, you 2226 White Podcast. Evening, David. So you got a Plymouth fan listening in.
Yeah, great to see that.
Anne Joyner, just loving this interview. So interesting listening to David. Met him once visiting his mate I was looking after at Walsgrave Hospital. Nice guy.
Very nice, thank you.
Colin Branfield, I seen Queen at Nebworth many years ago. Very good. Mark Rainbow. Oh, here's a question for you, David. What's it like to play against your old? Is it emotional or just part of the job? You scored against Coventry.
It can be both, actually. Yeah. No, I never did. And that's one thing Oggy always told me about. But it is sometimes, it is weird playing against your old side. And it's happened to me on several occasions. I still remember when I left and went to Norwich, and the first time I went back to Highfield Road, first and foremost, I had a fantastic reception. But it is weird going back to your old stomping ground as such. It can be emotional, and sometimes it plays a part as well, because you know how well revered you were during that course of time.
Well, I think, David, thank you for coming on. We've gone well over. I said we'd be about an hour. Sorry about that. We've gone well over, but it's been a fantastic evening.
So it's all my Wi-Fi. It's all my Wi-Fi going down. So I'll blame my PA.
But it's been a great night, a great insight to your career, and I mean, obviously, you went on after Nottingham Forest, but we'll have to do a 2-parter at this rate with another 10 songs. But Thanks for coming
Oh
on.
yeah, listen, I'll be more than happy to do that because there's more stories at Huddersfield, Lincoln, Stevenage, etc.
Brilliant.
And obviously, like I said, those songs are just songs that I've seen artists who've had an influence on me, but not necessarily my top 10. But I've enjoyed this evening. I really thanks to both of you. Thanks for putting up with me, Miles, here regarding the Wi-Fi situation. And I wish you guys all the best.
Cheers. Thanks a lot, David. And,
Thank you, David. Thanks for coming on, mate.
It's been,
You're very
a
welcome.
great night. So what we got coming up in the future, Miles? What's coming up?
Yeah, so we have got this Sunday. We don't have a live show this Sunday. We have a recording of you and Jim Brown from
me and Jim Brown, that's right.
because it's bank holiday, we thought we'll have a weekend off, and we're bringing you the episode 6 of Jim Brown's top 10 players, non-league to first 11, with the Sky Blue podcast, with Sky Blue History podcast, sorry, with Jim Brown and our very own Claudio, who has done a fantastic job tonight. Brilliant work, mate. So we've got that coming up. Then the 2 weeks, a week Sunday coming. So we're not live this Sunday, but a week this Sunday coming. We're going to talk goalie kicks this time. So we've done home, we've done away. We're going to talk goalie kicks. And then the week after that, we've got history of the club crest. And I'm going to ask Jim Brown if he'll come on and talk us through the whole history of how the club crest has changed over the years from Singers FC all the way up to present day. So that's another one that's coming very, very soon.
And hopefully next week, the podcast I'm doing with Jim will be from about 1936 to the war years, about our history.
Wow.
So I know. I didn't see him. Oh, he does make me work, I tell you.
And also, hopefully, in the next couple of weeks, we'll have news of the forward thinking of Sky Blue Fans TV. You're going to be very excited about it all. Hopefully, in the next couple of weeks, we'll have a little bit more information for you. And I think the fans and people that are watching are going to absolutely love it, aren't they, Claudio? Because we've got some big plans coming your way. But before we go, have you heard we've sold 10,000 season tickets so far? They've been on sale a week, which is absolutely brilliant. Our new signing has just joined us from Peterborough. He's been in the changing rooms today. So very excited to see that. Get my teeth in. Very excited to see him start playing. But also there's rumours about this young lad flying in from Australia. Have you heard about this one, David and Claudio?
I have, but it's just rumours, isn't it?
Ooh, I don't know.
Yeah, until they step through the door, let's just wait and see. But obviously, there's been a lot of talk about a couple of lads from Peterborough coming across, and I think if the two do come across, I think they'll be good signings for us.
Have you, David? Have you ever been linked with a rumour that you're thinking, no, it's an absolute rubbish?
It happens sometimes.
Oh, sorry, you've gone a bit Daleki again. Sorry. It's every time I ask an intrusive question, someone's pulling the plug.
We'll see you soon, David. Go and get a cup of tea. Cheers, mate.
Cheers.
Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. I'm gutted actually, because I wanted to ask him about the Panini stickers. I wanted to know what he thought about himself in Panini stickers.
There you go.
They're great, aren't they? They are great, aren't they?
It said he'd come back on, so we're getting back on again.
We'll get him next time. Thank you to everyone as well who's tuned in tonight. Sorry about the old glitches and everything. It's internet trouble at David's end, and sometimes it interferes. My end's a little bit dodgy sometimes, as you all know. But some great songs he's chosen. You too. Happy with that one?
Yeah, I am.
Yeah, very happy with that one. Definitely. I can't believe he chose Barbra Streisand.
I know. Well, there you go,
man. That's absolutely random. And obviously Pink's brilliant. We all know Pink's brilliant. And I've got a memory about Pink. When we're on our honeymoon, we were driving around Las Vegas in a convertible Chevrolet, and on the radio was Pink, and we'd never heard it before. And then we came back to the UK, and I think it was number one. First time we ever heard her in America. We come back, she was number one. But Deacon Blue, classic halftime song or before kickoff song at the football, weren't it?
Yeah, it was.
Always. And Adam Lambert, I haven't seen him live yet, but I've always thought about going to see him in Queen. But I think that's just he's got a great voice, isn't he? He's got a great voice.
Yeah,
and
American Idol is really, really good. He just stood out.
Yeah. Just absolutely just amazing tracks he's chosen, and a load more. And you'll be able to listen to that, the music and the interview. I've got to do editing. I don't know how I'm going to do it. I'm going to have a look at it. I'm going to try and edit it over the weekend, and that'll probably go out on BBC Radio next Wednesday. Hopefully, they've got to check out with Liam first. Make sure you got
Liam. And meanwhile, I'll find out off him who he was rumoured to have signed for, because he went off. That'd be interesting.
Yeah, very much so.
What he didn't say, because he always tells me about this, is that Billy McNeil, because he obviously fell out with him, he sold him to us, and the season he came to Cov, we won the FA Cup. He got relegated with Man City, Billy McNeil. And then he went to, I think he was at Villa for a short time, and he got relegated with them as well, or something like that. It was, he was involved in a couple of a pretty bad time. So,
I want to ask you a question now.
Oh, go on then.
So Burnley, Vincent Kompany's meant to be on his way.
Yeah.
What's going to happen?
Well, he's rumoured to go to Bayern Munich. I just find it odd how somebody's okay. He wouldn't change his philosophy. I can't see what he's done at Burnley. I mean, I can understand the Zerbi, something like that at Brighton. Or I don't know. It just seems like a weird choice to go for somebody like him.
Yeah, and then today, Wrexham podcast put on Twitter, Ben Wilson might be going to Wrexham.
Oh, that's interesting.
Well, I'll tell you something now. They're building a team to get promoted again, aren't they?
Well, that's the whole idea, isn't it?
Trying to do all of it, aren't they?
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see what happens there. But they're getting momentum. This is the thing. This is what happened with Ipswich. You get momentum. This is what happens. They've kept it going. Now, of course, the Ipswich manager could be on his way as well. So it's a right on merit. If I was an Ipswich Town fan, I'd be really disappointed if he goes now. Yeah.
He can't go now, can he? He's done his job. He's got to stay and see if he can keep him in there.
But I mean, they're all about Brighton might have him. I'm thinking. I'm sorry. I know they're in the Premier League, but so Ipswich now. But in my eyes, Ipswich are way bigger than Brighton.
Yeah.
Historically, way bigger.
Well, they've won more, haven't they? They've won way more.
I think. Well, yeah, definitely. Yeah, they won the league in the past, the FA Cup and that. Brighton's won nothing.
No.
They're like Crystal Palace. Yeah, when I look at teams like Palace, Fulham, Brentford, Brighton, in that Premier League, and we're not in it, it really annoys me at times because that's where we should be.
I'll tell you what, though, Crystal Palace's form in the last 5 games was absolutely hot, weren't it? Blimey. You imagine if they still had another 5 games to go where they could have ended up. Unbelievable.
It's interesting. We saw the form since Hodgson, wasn't it? Since he'd gone.
Yeah.
Different mindset. And I know you were saying about defensively, but
this is what I'm on about.
That's what Hodgson did at Liverpool, though, didn't he?
Yeah. But this is what I'm saying about England. This is what I'm saying about England. We've got these wonderful, wonderful players. And when they put an England shirt on and Gareth Southgate gives them their it's gone out of my mind. What's the word? Instructions. When they give them the instructions. Oh my God. Gives them the instructions. They go into like a little shell, like a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle or something. They don't want to do anything.
Yeah. And
And it's
also,
like-
I mean, David pointed out England's defence. That England
Yeah.
team needs to go forward because that defence, I'm looking at that thinking that looks a bit ropey.
Yeah,
There's no-
no, and there's no left back.
Yeah, it's
He's injured, so will he be going to the Euros? That's the thing. Now, before we go, Claudio, one question for you.
not on my first date.
Now, just one question for you. Back to kits. What do you think? What do you think the kits are going to be?
Oh, I thought they'd be announced already. You know, I'm surprised.
I'm a bit disappointed.
I'd like a plain blue. Actually, what about a sky blue with a pinstripe, like a thin pinstripe?
Ooh,
Nothing.
yeah.
Yeah.
What colour?
And,
What colour? Gold.
God, no, just white, pale, just.
I know, a little gold pinstripe.
Dear, oh dear, it's like a set of curtains.
What? So
but they've got to get
plain blue, a real thin pinstripe.
pinstripe. Yeah, every now and then. Nothing. Yeah, I don't know. But also the shorts have got to match the shirt if it's sky blue, and not where they have this. For some reason they get slightly darker sky blue. It's weird. Or you go dark blue. Do a contrast.
It's made out of the same material, so they shouldn't get it wrong.
Yeah, but they always do. Like a couple of years ago, it was like that, wasn't it? Where the shorts were darker. It was weird.
Yeah. I know. And what about away kit? What colour would you like?
I'd
Yellow.
Yellow. I think
you know you won't like yellow, don't you?
I know. Yeah, and I agree with what somebody said about not having sky blue, because some clubs they play sky blue. They have like quite a bit of sky blue in the away kit, and I think no. I'm surprised that never used to be allowed years ago.
No,
it sort of crept in, hasn't it?
And third kit,
black and gold.
Black and gold.
That's quite good, I think. I like a gold badge. Imagine the badge in gold.
Imagine it.
And I think we should have a star for the one FA Cup. That'd be good, wouldn't it? Just for a laugh.
Hey, you imagine a black and gold kit.
Yeah, with the Hummel in. Yeah.
You
so I see
know.
they've made more announcements, haven't they, about the family's own tickets as well now, which is getting more and more complicated by the day.
You know what, Claudio? I have been that busy at work this week. I haven't even been able to sit down. Tell us about it. What's happened?
Well, it's just more announcements about what you need to do, that you're not allowed to sit in that area if you're childless, even if it's your season ticket. You have to swap it. And you upgrade it to a adult ticket.
Okay.
I mean, I think you pay the difference basically.
Okay.
So I can understand that, but what happens if the rest of the ground is sold out?
Exactly.
Where are they going to sit? On my lap?
Now
I wrote an email to the club. I did.
Here we go. You didn't put Sky Blue Fans TV on the bottom of the email.
No. And basically, I just came up with the suggestion of a family and friends scheme, where if I have a season ticket, I can name people on that ticket that can go and I can't go. And they could just gain entry. So if you've got a family ticket, you could name niece. I mean, I could put my niece and nephew, and I think you met them. They could go to the game if I can't make it, or whatever. Yeah. And also there's lots of people who choose not to sit in the family stand who've got kids. We know them. They're around by me as well. They just want to sit. They want their kids to sit where it's a bit more mental, I suppose is the word. Now
listen, I just want to people who've just tuned in, if you're looking for David Phillips, he's now gone. He started at 7 o'clock tonight. We've been going 2 hours again. So if you're looking for David Phillips, he's gone now. So, but if you want to watch it back, you can do. So so this family and friends. So you could name some people on your list, and give them the ticket if you don't go.
Yeah, exactly. So they could just say they can go. At the minute, you have to. Say if my son can't go, he's got an adult ticket now as Luca. If I wanted to take Caroline, you are supposed to go and get it changed so that she can go in. You can't just go in on his ticket if you look at it, which means you've got to buy it again. That's just ridiculous, isn't it?
You're not in the family zone.
No, but any other ticket, and it doesn't matter which ticket it is, you can't transfer your ticket to somebody else when you look at the small print in any area.
Right. I'm going to tell you now what Leeds do. So
Well,
this week, I've had Bill's mate working with me this week for 2 days, having a little trial ready for the summer. He's going to come join us in the summer. And he's a Leeds fan, and he goes to the games. And what they do in Leeds is if you can't go to the game, you put your ticket on ticket exchange. The ticket's resold, and you get half the money back.
right.
So they give you some of the money back. So the ticket's sold at full price, but you get half the money back. So because you bought it, because you bought a season ticket, it's 17 quid a ticket.
Yeah.
If you put it on ticket exchange, it gets sold for full price, say 48 quid. You get half the money back.
You get 20 quid back.
Yeah.
So basically,
You get half.
Well, that's all right then, isn't it?
Yeah. So why don't you do that? That's what Leeds do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know a lot of clubs do stuff like this, but that's my worry is you can't, if they want you to buy a ticket elsewhere, how are you going to do it if the rest of the ground's full?
Exactly.
You can't move out your seat. So it doesn't work out, does it? So
it'll end up, you'll have to buy a seat in the executive seats, which is going to cost you 50, 60 quid.
Well, I think the club need to concentrate on filling those seats up there, to be honest.
Did you get a reply?
Not yet, no.
Hey, well, you never know. They watch the show, they might reply.
And it's a fair suggestion, isn't it? There's nothing in there controversial. It's just a thought. That's all. Just a thought.
No. Cov Andy's come in. He says, I'd love a black and gold. Love that. Have to wait and see. I think it's going to be yellow. Don't know.
Yeah, it's just weird. Also, when I saw that ad for Efron and saying he's here, I actually thought it was a different player because he's already been in the video. He's already been in the video, hasn't he?
Yeah, I know. Yeah, so, unless I reckon that was taken the same time. They've only just released it.
They've gone, oh no, you didn't. Yeah, we forgot to release this. Surely that should have been released first. Or I don't know. It's just.
I reckon that's what's happened. I know this isn't football related, but can we just say of CWR this week has been to Downing Street. It's her fault we're having a general election on the 4th of July. Trish, thanks for that. So I don't know what's going to happen there. I'm just looking through socials now. There isn't anything else happening, is there? It's all very, very quiet. I'll tell you what we're going to do. We're going to get a score prediction off you, right? For the FA Cup final this weekend, we're going to get a score prediction off you. Now, it should be us in the final, as we all know. So give us a score for the FA Cup final, Claudio.
I, along with every single Coventry City supporter, hope Man City go absolutely nuts on Saturday. And I'm really hoping for about 4 goals. I want them to be absolutely humiliated Saturday. So I'm thinking Phil Foden, fill your boots because come on, 4-0 Man City, please.
Okay, I'm going. Right, I'm going to go 5-0. Go and absolutely rip them apart. Really, honestly. Yeah. Okay, playoff.
Right. Oh. Right. I actually want. I mean, for us personally, it'd be better if Southampton stayed in the league.
Yeah.
And let Leeds go up because they're going to be strong. But
yeah,
Leeds are going to be in such a mess if they don't get promoted because they've got a massive wage bill, and those parachute payments are becoming less and less. So I want Southampton to win, and I think they can do it 1-0. They can bore a team to death, can't they, Southampton, if they want to, with all their passing. 1-0.
I'm. But you just said you prefer Leeds to go up.
Yeah, in terms of we've got more, obviously, because they're going to be strong in our league next season if they don't go up. So if they're out the way with Southampton in our league, we've got a better chance of getting promoted.
Yeah.
You see, but I want Southampton to, in the end. I want Southampton to get promoted. Yeah, because then Leeds, if they don't go up, although they're strong, they may have to get rid of players because of the money. Router's not going to stay there. Somerville won't stay there.
No. Okay. I'm going for a 2-1 Leeds. I am.
Right.
I think Leeds I think they're too strong, to be honest with you. But yeah, we'll have to wait and see what happens, won't we? Now, if you're not doing anything tomorrow night, everybody that's watching or watching back, I'm DJing at the Old Shepherd in Kersley tomorrow night. Pop down, come and have a dance, come and say hello, and we can have a couple of drinks and dance the night away. So come and see me tomorrow night. New bar, also, new opening.
And also, if you're not doing anything tomorrow night, I'll be in the Engine in Kenilworth because it's my birthday celebration weekend.
Unbelievable. So you need to come over to my place then. Well, I'm DJing, don't you?
Yeah, but it's only 4 miles away. So get Uber there and back. So I'll be in the Engine. If you want to buy me a drink, come and buy me a drink.
Unbelievable. Is it your birthday by any chance?
Well, it's on Sunday. What a weekend that would have been, Miles. FA Cup final, playoffs, on my birthday.
I know.
Yeah, I was really hoping the playoff final on my birthday would have been it was last year as well. So that was miserable.
I don't know who this is, but Flawless. Hello, lads. It's my birthday today. Happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
We've had that one. Steve Price says 4-1 to City. And Joyner says someone on the forum suggested that they should charge same prices as other areas in the ground for adults in the family zone, and the cheaper child's tickets that would stop the people who've been using the zone to get in cheaper. Yeah, so keep the same prices all around the ground. 6-0 to Man City, says Paul Thomas. Ralph Riggins says, got to agree with Claudio. Agree with Claudio. Ralph, come on. Steve Price says 3-2 to Leeds. Ralph Riggins says Southampton to win the playoffs. And Dave Saunders says 4-0 to City and Southampton to win 2-1. Right, let's call it a night. Let's wrap it up.
I think so.
Let's go and enjoy our bank holiday. I've got to go and sort out my hard drive now for tomorrow night because it's playing up. Oh, it's got all my music on it. What am I going to do? But listen, no, honest, please come down tomorrow night. Come and say hello down in Kersley. It'd be great to see you. Come and have a picture took with me. We can have a little chat, can't we? Can take on, have a few photos. Mark Cunningham says 10-0 to Man City. Oh man. Hey, did you see that? Did you see that banner that someone's made and superimposed it on Wembley at the City end? It's got a picture saying something about Man United. You're not welcome. This should be Cov City, and someone's put, make this happen, Man City, to have this banner coming down from the roof. And it's a picture of Torp putting the ball in the back of the net. Oh, I don't know. Right, you're going to say goodbye to everyone.
Yeah, goodbye to everyone, and thank you for listening. We're going to do more and more of these, try and get ex-players in, and from different eras. And I find it fun. It's interesting to do, and it gives you a different insight, doesn't it, to their careers.
Yeah, definitely. And don't forget to stay tuned this Sunday. We've got Claudio and Jim Brown's podcast. You can see the video, and also next Thursday as well. So we'll see you a week on Sunday live with goalie kits. I mean, you never know. Our home kit might be released. So we'll see you all later. Take care, everyone. Good night from me, Mark, Adam, and good night from Claudio. Play up Sky Blues.
Play up Sky Blues.
Sky Blue Fans TV. For the fans, by the fans.